What's up everybody, this is Josh from Josh Kid Films. Thanks for tuning in to another video. Today we're going to talk about using the Pocket series of cameras for shooting weddings. We've been shooting weddings with the Pocket 4K since November, soon after it came out. We used 3 separate rigs, an A rig for me, a B rig for my second shooter, and a C rig that we put on the Ronin that I carry around most of the time. So I've shot weddings all the way from November to June with the Pocket 4K, and I think we did 14 weddings with the Pocket 4K. So I'm going to talk a little bit about using that specifically, and then I'll talk about the 6K because we just added that for this fall season. There's a lot of things I really like about using the Pocket 4K for weddings. A lot of people act like the Pocket 4K isn't a good event camera or it can't do run and gun, and I would have to disagree. I think the Pocket 4K has probably been the most enjoyable camera that I've ever used for shooting weddings. Specifically on the 4K, I love the micro 4/3 mount. I adapt a lot of FD glass on the Pocket 4K, and I think there's another video on my page where I go through all the different FD lenses and things like that I use, but you can pretty much put any type of lens on the Pocket 4K with the right adapter setup, and that is super flexible. You can use regular V30 SD cards if you're just shooting 4K, DCI, 24p, even up to 5:1 B-raw compression. It'll go just fine on those V30 cards. So when you shoot a long wedding, you have a lot of footage. Being able to shoot V30 is super helpful when you have a lot of data and you're shooting for long hours in the day, because it means you don't have to invest in a ton of CFast cards or a bunch of SSDs, and it helps keep the file sizes down a little bit. Typically we shoot in 8:1 RAW for weddings. I've kind of found that's a nice sweet spot for data versus quality. And so typically when we were using all Pocket 4Ks, we'd average about 800 gigabytes per wedding. When we originally were shooting on 5:1, it was more like 1.5 terabytes. Now that we've gone to 2 Pocket 6Ks, we're back up to about 1.5 terabytes, even if we use 8:1 compression. I think one of the biggest knocks that people have on the Pocket series of cameras in general is the battery life. And I will agree that the internal batteries, while they're not just atrocious, they're not that good. We average about 50 minutes to an hour, maybe more if we're turning the camera off and on a little bit. We pretty much use power solutions for our 2 main monopod rigs, and we use V-mount batteries, and we use a simple V-mount to Waipu power connector cable that we got from Condor Blue, and I'll link it in the description. But when I plug that into the side of the camera, I can shoot a whole 8-hour wedding on 1 V-mount battery without running out of battery, and it's awesome. I don't have to think about it. While the internal battery life isn't that good, I've never had a camera where it's so easy to just plug in external power solution. So I actually really like that it's that easy. I like that I can just plug it into the side and roll with it and not have to think about it. I really love shooting in B-RAW. It's very flexible. You can change your white balance and your ISO after the fact, and it's non-destructive. This is super helpful for event shooting when things are changing rapidly and you might not have nailed your white balance or you might not have nailed your ISO. To be able to change it in post is super easy and super helpful. And just for that reason alone, it's probably the most flexible camera you could shoot a wedding with. I really like the HFR button on the back of the camera. It's so quick to switch in and out of slow motion. A lot of wedding filmmakers use slow motion, and to be able to do it so quickly and efficiently, it really just makes things streamlined and easy on the day of shooting. I shoot a lot of details and prep stuff in slow-mo. I tend to try to stick to 24p for people for the most part. I just like the way that it looks, but it's just super easy to go back and forth. One of the things that's really cool about the camera is with the function buttons, it's so easy to show your bride and your groom footage quickly, and even the HFR, how it does it in camera. You can pull up a shot that you just shot of them on the beach and it's in slow motion and it's beautiful, and you can swipe up to turn all of the menu settings off, and they can see this beautiful shot that you just composed in slow motion, and everyone's reactions are always just like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. So that's really fun to be able to do that so quickly with this camera. I haven't really found the screen to be an issue for the type of shooting that I do. I'm typically not low or super high shooting at extreme angles down or up. So it really hasn't been an issue for me, but I do think it kind of depends on your shooting style. If you shoot a lot of high angles like that or low angles, you might want to add a monitor, but for me, it hasn't been an issue. I'm going to take you guys through all the different rigs that I use for weddings in just a second, but I did want to talk about just recently we sold 2 of our Pocket 4Ks. I bought a Pocket 6K a few weeks ago to kind of test it out and see if it was something I wanted to use. I was actually in a really good place with my Pocket 4Ks. I had 3 FD adapter Metabones that I had bought and a bunch of FD lenses, and I had planned on using all FD lenses. So the Pocket 6K kind of threw a wrench in it for me a little bit, but a lot of things I really like about it, so I wanted to kind of try it. Once I bought it, once I tried it, it definitely had a look that I prefer over the Pocket 4K. It's not like super drastic, but there's a softer and a smoother roll off to the 6K, and it feels a little bit more like it has a little bit more depth to the shot. And obviously the 6K resolution is super nice. There's a lot of things that I use it for where I will use it in 6K mode, and then I can make stills from that 6K, and the stills look amazing, and they're also high enough resolution. So if I was doing something where they would go to print it, it works for everybody. So it's kind of taken 2 jobs, things where I might have shot some photography and video, and I can just shoot on the Pocket 6K, and the end result is really good for both video and stills. It is also really nice to not have to use an adapter. The EF mount on the 6K protrudes so much it almost feels like you're using an adapter sometimes. But what I've found with the adapters is typically when you go all the way wide open with the lens, there's some issues there with maybe like hazing or flare or softness. And with most lenses on these Pocket 6Ks, you don't really see that wide open, which is kind of nice to be able to use some of my EF glass all the way wide open that I would have had to stop down on the Pocket 4K. Moving forward, I don't have any plans on selling this Pocket 4K. My rigs will stay with 2 Pocket 6Ks and a Pocket 4K for now, and I'll go into detail here in just a second on what that looks like. But I can't recommend the Pocket 4K and the Pocket 6K more for weddings because it's just such an easy camera to use. The image is beautiful. The dynamic range is just incredible. It gives you a result that is just super professional and just super high-end. I really love it. I love the flexibility in grading. I love how much color information is to the shot. I think at this point there's so many options on the market in general that are just incredible high-quality cameras. And if you say, well, I'm not going to use one of those because I might have to work a little harder, or I don't have the autofocus, or it takes too much memory. That's not the philosophy that I tend to use when it comes to weddings. I want to get the best image quality and the best image result because I feel like that's going to make the most impact in the films that I create. For us, we started shooting on Canon 7Ds and Canon 5D Mark IIs 10 years ago and used C100s without autofocus for years. So it's very comfortable for us to manually focus and to use rigging like monopods and gimbals and that type of thing without IBIS and all that kind of stuff. For other people maybe that started on the GH5 or something like that, or Sony, it might be a little different to jump into that world of doing everything yourself. But I would encourage you to learn to manually focus, to learn how to best rig your gear and not be so dependent on your camera, because in the end that's going to make you a better filmmaker. So let's check out these rigs that I use for weddings. So this is rig A. I'm going to try to do this where I can show you. V-mount battery, Watson 97 watt hour. And I run it right here through the V-mount to the WAPU connector, and that gives me the 8 hours. I'm using the Red Rock Micro rail system right here, and I've just got like a little clamp right there, and then Pocket 6K EF glass on the Manfrotto monopod. This is my rig too, Pocket 6K with EF glass on a Manfrotto monopod. I've got a little clamp right here with this small rig plate, so it's hooked to the back of this V-mount, and it's clamped on right here. And then I run the V-mount to WAPU AC connector there. Same thing, get about 8 to 9 hours on this setup. This typically goes to my second shooter. This has been a Pocket 4K, now it's Pocket 6K. So he'll get a bunch of various EF primes with that, and this one will be good to go. Okay, this is rig C. This is Ronin S with the Pocket 4K with the Metabones FD adapter, and typically all it has on it is this 20 to 35 FDL lens. I absolutely love this lens. It's just got an amazing look. It's so smooth, and it just has just a really nice character to it. So I've been using that on my Ronin pretty much for all my setup shots, all my wide shots, and movement with like the couple and that type of thing. But I noticed that a lot of people seem to have issues balancing the Ronin. What I've always done, and I've never seemed to really have an issue, is I've got this Manfrotto quick release plate that I've got the Ronin plate attached to, and then on the bottom of the camera, I've got, it's kind of hard to see, I'm zoom in or something, I've got this little Ronin S adapter plate that came with it, and then the normal Manfrotto plate that comes with the 501 head. But let me slide this on. I just put it on the quick release plate, and so I know that it's gonna stay there. I just kind of fiddle with it here a little bit, but you can see it's balanced, and it works really well. I've never really had an issue getting it balanced with the quick release plate and the little Ronin plate on the bottom. And I've used a bunch of different lenses. I worked with the 18 to 35 a lot before I had this lens, and it balanced fine too. So if you're having trouble, that might be a good way to also be a little more efficient, because it's so easy to take on and off. You literally just, if you want to take it off the Ronin, you pop it off like that, and then as soon as you want to use it again, you can just slide it, and the position that you had in the quick release plate, so the balance shouldn't change or anything like that. But that's been working really well for me. My last wedding I shot with the 6Ks. I used the 4K a lot just because once I got to the reception, this was the lens that I chose to use for dancing, and that 20 to 35 focal length range is really good for reception stuff. So I used this most of the reception portion of the wedding. But anyway, those are the 3 camera rigs that I have been using. So this is one more thing that I wanted to show you guys, because we get a lot of questions that people ask about what lighting I use at the reception. We try to keep a low profile. So we have these Onyx lights by iCam, and they're super easy. They take the Sony NPF batteries. Basically, you get full color adjustment from 3200 to 5600 Kelvin, and then you get full dimming from 0 to 100. So they're super versatile. Typically on a dance floor, I'll set them up and I'll run them at like 50 to 60%, and usually can get through the entire reception just on the initial 2 batteries that I have in the back. And I also have a guy typically that will follow behind me for like exits and hold them up in the air. I don't like to use on-camera lighting. I just don't like the way it looks. So these are super easy and light to just grab on a pole and to hold them up, or just put them on a stand in front of the cake or the dance floor or anything like that. And I've been really happy with these. For their price, you just can't beat them. I hope you guys enjoyed kind of seeing all my different wedding rigs and what I've been doing. If you look at my page or my Vimeo, also under Josh Kidd Films, you'll find a ton of weddings that we've shot on the Pocket 4K, and we'll be adding more weddings we've done on the 6K as we shoot them this fall. And so I'm really excited about it, and you guys make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any more videos. You guys have a great night.